I've been feeding a super awesome pair of woven pants. I do the same process every time, and so I thought, why not share? This is a refresher on how to check your pattern, how to check your rise, how to do the basic adjustments before sewing a test garment. It'll be super practical. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and today I have a pants fitting refresher. I have a whole series that I developed during the years of 2020-21 about fitting woven pants, and it takes you from the very basics. It's quite a nice series that covers all the topics that you would need: how to measure your body, how to adjust your pants. I made several pants as examples and showed the adjustments. I showed what ill-fitting pants look like. I sewed some pants that were fitting me horrible so you could see what the problem was and how to fix. So if you've missed out, you're missing out on a lot of information. That's all here on YouTube for free on the playlist. I'll leave it linked down below. I love sewing pants. I don't shy away from them. I'm always sewing quite a few of them every single year. I have the process down, all the steps that I do every single time I make a new pair, a new pattern. I do the same checks to make sure these are going to fit me. Depending on the style, I'll make a test garment. It's usually non-wearable. I'm not a fan of trying to make wearable pants because there's so many things that can go wrong. You can get really disappointed with pants that don't fit because there are so many things that you can't just fix after the fact. So I'm a huge proponent of the non-wearable, just ugly fabric. See what the fit is. All that information is super helpful for you to make your final pair out of the nice fabric. I've been making lots of pants and I'm going to tackle a new pair of pants. It's a pattern that's releasing tomorrow at Love Notions. It's called Medowlark and it's a hiking pant. Fitted at the waist because it's got an elasticated feature at the back. The front is flat, the back has elastic. It's not a roomy pant with lots of V's that you just pull up. No, these are more fitted than that. And they have quite a few features that I definitely want to check the fit of before going into my main fabric. While I was planning my basic steps, I thought, why don't I just film this and have this refresher for you here on woven pants. The Medowlark have a lot of features there that are extras and decorative as such. Lots of patch pockets, zip pockets, lamp pockets, all the pockets. You don't need those to check for the fit. So I thought, why don't I just make a basic pair out of some sheets, see the fit and share the process with you. Just remember, they're not for sale yet. They're going to be released tomorrow, Tuesday the 29th. As soon as I have the link available, I will add it to this video so you can grab them as soon as they come out live. Now, first thing, I'm going to share with you the basics of how to take your measurements. I know a lot of people struggle with that. Maybe you don't know what your front rise and your back rise is. How do you come up with those numbers and how do you compare that to the pattern? So we're going to see all this today, just a little summarized compared to the huge fitting series that I have. Let's check out these measurements. I'm wearing fitted clothing, leggings in black, so you can really see my shape and what's going on there. I'm wearing fitted clothes so you can really see my shape. I have a 1/4 inch elastic and it's going to find my waist beautifully. It's not going to interfere with my measurements because it's a thin elastic. Some people say that the waist is at the belly button, but you can see mine is slightly above the belly button. I have a sticker there to show you where my belly button actually is. That is my shape. It might not be yours, but that is where I find pants comfortable for me, right there. For some people, it's hard to know where their waist is. I just bend over, you can clearly tell, and there's a slight tilt higher in the back, a little lower in the front, and that's where I find the most comfortable. That's what I aim for with the fit of my pants. Up higher on the back is easier and comfortable for me to sit down and not have that pull down. But if you do have a difference, pants are going to ride up to the smallest part of you, so that is why I aim to have my pants fit at my smallest. I have a tape metric and imperial there, and this is what I'm going to use to measure my whole rise. So you have to do some contorting. I'm going to put the tape measure right there at the elastic. A small elastic is going to help you not distort there because you're not counting that elastic in your measurement. You're going to go all the way to the front where you want it to be. In my case, my rise is 29 3/4 or 75 centimeters. You need to know what the front and the back is to measure your pants. So you need to contort and see. I have the 0 from the back to the front, so I can see the length of my back rise there. Write that down, and then the rest of it is going to be my front rise. So divide that in 2. I know my back rise is 17.5 and my front is 12. But you don't want it to be that fitted unless you're making super fitted pants. You need to add some ease to that. I like to add about 1 inch of ease in total. About half an inch on the front, about half an inch on the back so that I have space to move, especially for pull-up pants with elastic. I like that 1 inch of ease on the total rise length. So those are my measurements. I write that down. Now, how about your waist? Some people don't know where to measure the waist. I like to find the smallest part, as I said, and just measure nice and fitted, but not too fitted, not sucking in air. The hip as well, for some people it's hard to know where that is. Some people talk about the hip as in the high hip or where the bones are, like that, where the elastic is now, but that's actually the high hip. For pants, you need to find the fullest part. It varies the length from the waist down, approximately from 7 to 9 inches. Just find the largest part. In my case, that is my largest part. For some people, it might be a little lower in the upper thigh area, just depends on your shape. But that is actually what you need, or else your pants are not going to fit and they're going to be uncomfortable. You're not going to be able to pull them up over your hips if you measure up higher than that. I hope this is helpful. So based on what you saw here, you see these are my measurements: 34 waist, 43.5-inch hip. My front rise is actually 12 inches, but I always want it to be 12.5 so I can have a bit of ease. My back rise is 17.5. I always want it to be 18 so I can have that little bit of ease. So these are things I have in my head. And even though I've gained and lost weight, these measurements haven't changed. They can change sometimes with a full belly and pregnancy and things, but sometimes they stay pretty much the same. So I know those and they're memorized, and that's what I check for with every single pattern. Based on my waist and hips, you can see the measurements chart here from the Medowlark. I have chosen a size large, which is pretty much my size. The hip circumference for size large is 43. I'm 43.5. I don't think that's a huge difference. I'm still going to have around 4 inches of ease at the hips here if you look at the finished garment measurements. The waist appears as 1.5. These are pull-on pants, and you would think there's no way that waist is going to fit over the hips, but the waistband is opened up. Even though they are pull-up, the waistband isn't closed in the front, so you can open that up, and that gives you a little larger circumference there. So you can actually pull the pants up, a little shimmy in, but you can do that. So that's the size I've chosen. And now I have to check the rise. I have to measure the pattern. There's several parts of these pants that you have to pin together to figure out what the total rise is going to be, because there's yokes and waistbands and whatnot. So let's see how we're going to check the back first. I want to check the back rise of these pants, but they're composed out of 3 pieces. This is the back leg, but then there's a yoke and then there's a waistband. So when they're all sewn together, you're going to end up with a total measurement. So I want to pin it as sewn, and that's how I'm going to be able to measure the rise correctly. The seam allowance is 3/8 for these patterns, so I'm just going to draw that in red all along this end. Here I'm just going to draw in the curve after marking a few points. I'm also going to draw the inseam partially because I want to know where that seam allowance is, so I don't consider that in the measurement also, right there. Then for this yoke piece, here along the center and then along here on the top. Not completely, just this center area. That's all you need over here. And for the waistband piece, the same. I'd forgotten to draw the seam allowance on the top of the back legs. I'm coming closer so you can see I've got the red line on top of the red line. So that's how it's going to be sewn. And then the same with the waistband piece. Red line on top of the red line as sewn. And now I can measure the full length of the back crotch. Best way to do it is with a flexible tape. You can follow the shape easily. Don't try to do it with a ruler. Like, I could be tempted to do this because it's semi-flexible, but it will never be as flexible as a tape. So from there, taking away that seam allowance, I'm going to measure along the seam line because that's how we're going to sew it. Don't measure it from the edge of the paper. Going along the curve here. And I have 17 inches. I know that I need 18 inches for my body so it can fit correctly and so it won't be uncomfortable. So I know that I need to add 1 inch here to the back rise. I'm not going to do it right away because I want to see if I need to do any changes to the front first. I always want to know because it depends on that how I'm going to add the rise here. So I know that 1 inch is what I need for this one. You can see that after pinning everything, it measures 17 inches. I know I need 18 inches for the back. That's what my aim is. So I know I need to add 1 inch. Now, don't hurry up here and start making your adjustments because you always need to know what you need for the front as well. You need to make these side seams match. So let's check the front.
This is the front leg. We have an extension here for a fake fly. So I have drawn my seam allowance there for the inseam and around that curve right here. I've also drawn it right there on the top, but I still need to draw it on the waistband. So for the waistband, you can see it's slightly curved. I'm going to do the same thing, draw the 3/8 here on the top area and then at the bottom area. Here I'm going to have to move this a little this way because we have that fly extension. So as long as I have the total rise here in this area where I'm going to measure, then it's going to be okay. So this one is easier to measure because we're only measuring two pieces, the leg and the waistband. Remember the back had the yoke in there as well. So you just have to include all the pieces that are going to compose the rise, not taking account that seam allowance, of course, measuring at the seam line and then follow along the curve up to here. And what I get is 11.5 inches. Okay, so I know that I need to add 1 inch here as well because my front rise for a pair of pants to be comfortable for me is 12.5 inches. So I know I need to add 1 inch over here as well.
For the front, you can see that after pinning the waistband, it measured 11.5 and I need 12.5, which means I need an inch as well. So let's see how to adjust these. I'm going to show you several scenarios as well because these are my personal fitting adjustments. These could be totally different for you. Remember, I'm taller, I'm 5'8". I have a pretty tall pelvic frame. I'm short-waisted. Usually I need to add rise to most pants. So this is normal for me. But if you're petite, you might need to do the opposite. But you see that I'm adding, you can overlap instead.
Okay, here is my back. I still have all the pieces pinned. I want to adjust on this part, on the main leg, and I want to be as high as possible. I don't want to go down too far because it can mess with that shape here. So about an inch below this area, I'm going to draw my line right here. It's easy to follow the way I've taped my pattern pieces here so I can be perpendicular to the grain line. This is my adjustment line right here. I know I have to add an inch to the whole thing because it's what I did to the front so that the side seams are going to match. So I'm going to cut all the way through. So you can see that's how much I'm going to add. What happens if I needed to add an inch to the front? So that would be okay, but 1.5 to the back. Then I would just open this up a little further like this. And then it would be 1.5 here, but still 1 inch here. What happens if I wanted to keep this the same? I would do this and only add length to the front. So you can do all sorts of little movements where you get wedges or adding all the way through. It just depends on what you need for your individual body for the front and the back. In this case, it's the easiest scenario that you could find. So I'm going to go ahead and add my yellow paper here all the way through. Before adding my paper, what I'm going to do is extend this grain line so that it covers this area here. So I'm just going to place my ruler and just extend this arrow up to here. Now I'm going to measure the inch that I want, cut off some excess. Now I have the grain line mark here. I'm just going to extend it to the yellow paper that I added so I can match them up. And then I'm going to put this one right here to match the same grain line mark. That's how I know my pants are not going to move that way or that way. You don't want to do that. You want to keep it the same. Now I need to smooth this side here. In this case, I'm going to opt to add more paper there. And then take this width and just blend it into here. There. And then there's still a bump here, so I'm just going to smooth this out so it's nice and smooth, no bumps. That looks much better. So because I need to add an inch to the front and the back, it's going to make it super easy to do because I can add an inch on the whole way through from the center to including the side because I also need to add an inch to the back. If I had to add different amounts or none, then it would be different. So I'm going to choose a place right here around the middle and just draw myself a line. I want to keep it closer to the top area, not here where the curve starts because I don't want to mess with it. And this time it's going to be extremely easy. All I'm going to have to do is cut through the whole thing. Now, if I needed to, for example, just add 1/2 inch to the front and an inch to the back, then it would be different. I'm going to add paper in between, and that's how I'm going to add an inch to the front the whole way through. If, for example, I needed to add 1 inch to the back but only half an inch to the front, then I would keep the inch here and just make it smaller here on this side. If I only needed to change the front rise but not the back, then I would keep the side the same and then add like this. So it's all a game of making the side seams match. In this case, I need to add an inch to the back as well, so it's easy as adding an inch to the whole thing. Doesn't always end up like that, not for every pattern, but for this one, it's going to end up like this. So this is where I'm going to add my piece of paper and just add in to complete the rise that I need to be comfortable. Okay, there's my inch added. I have the edge straight here because it's a straight edge. Here it's slightly curved, so I'm just going to have to blend these two pieces together so that it looks nice and smooth. Cut off the excess. And here is my front ready to be used. Now I'm going to head over to the back side. When I sew my side seams, the side seams are going to match because I added the same to the front and the back. That's what I needed for my personal adjustments. But remember, this can change. You can do wedges instead.
You can see that for these pants, I need an inch in the front and the back, which makes it so easy. That's the easiest scenario. You add an inch to the whole thing, through the whole thing. But there might be scenarios where you don't need to change anything on the front and you just need to change on the back. In that case, you'll be working with wedges. To see more of this in detail, in a lot of details with lots of examples, please see this video. This video talks about the crotch, the rise, how to adjust. And it's the most viewed video on my channel ever. Plenty of positive feedback. I know it's helped a lot of people. So go ahead and watch that. After watching that one, you will have no doubt on how to adjust the crotch, rise, the back, the front on all your pants. This is what I needed specifically for these pants, the Medowlark pants from Love Notion. Now that I've adjusted my rise, I'm ready to sew my non-wearable test garment. As I said, I'm going to use some old bed sheets. They are pretty much awful. Like I don't want to use them anymore on my bed, but they're tightly woven. They don't stretch. I'm going to use woven non-stretch fabric for my pants as well. So this is going to be perfect. And I don't want the pockets. Now the patch pockets, don't worry about those. They're just sewn onto the legs, but there's some slanted pockets there that you need to adjust to complete the hip area for this test garment. Let's see how to correct that. Now remember, if you don't want to sew those slant pockets, this is the same thing that you would do to achieve just a front leg with no slant pockets.
When I sew my final pair, I'm going to sew all the pockets, but for the test garment, I don't want to sew any pockets. That's just a waste of time. So you can see this shape here. This is actually a pocket opening slanted. I don't want to do that. I'm still missing part right here for the hip area. So to complete this just for my test garment, I'm going to take the lining piece that follows the same shape right here and align it. I just need a few pins for this. So that's pinned. Now I'm going to take my pocket bag that follows the same shape here on the bottom and put them together. But this pocket bag has the piece that's missing right here on the waist, on the sides. I'm going to take this pin and use it again. Now this is what you do if you don't want to do this specific pocket. These pants are going to have patch pockets on the side, zipper pockets, lots of pockets. If by any case you didn't want to have this pocket right here on the top, this is what you would do. Ignore all of this because this is one large piece. This is how I'm going to cut my front now. I have the whole waist, all of this, and I have a completed front. You can see this was what was missing right there. That's how I'm going to cut my test garment for the front leg.
Now, there's one particular thing in these pants that is going to affect the leg length. And if you're taller or petite, it could really affect where the knee darts end. These are articulated knees. There's darts on each side of the knees. The knee's meant to be right in the middle there. So if your leg is longer and shorter, these knee darts could end up above the knee, below the knee. Could it just end up in all the wrong places according to your height? So let's have a look at the pattern.
Now I'm happy to do rise adjustments on my paper with flat pattern measurements and then sew a quick test garment. What I'm not going to do though is make the length adjustment to the leg. I'd rather see that on my body. So in this particular case, we have articulated knees and there are darts here on the knees. These should end up with my knee right here, but that's hard for me to measure. It's just harder to measure. I'm going to just sew it as is. I'm going to see how this fits on my body. And I do have the sneaky suspicion that I'm going to have to add a little bit of length above these so that this ends up on my knees and not above my knees because I'm a little taller. Here you have this notch triangle on the side. About an inch higher from that is where I'm gonna draw my custom adjustment line to add length right here. I suspect I will need that. I'd rather see with a test garment to know exactly how much length I need to add above the knee. If I don't think about these issues, I might think, the inseam is 30, I know I need 31, I would just add that here at the bottom. But actually where I need it is here so that the anatomical feature of these darts actually do match my knee. So that's something that comes next.
See, this is something that I would rather sew as is rather than doing flat pattern measurements. I was super happy to change the rise and then sew my test garment. But for this, I'd rather see it on me and see where I need to add that length because I have the suspicion I'm going to need it. I'm a little bit taller. Knowing that, and that is something I need to look for, let's see how this non-wearable test garment came out.
This is my muslin. It's an old bed sheet. Perfect. No stretch here. It can really show me how this fits while looking horrible. It's not meant to be wearable. I made a size large. You can see that the only change I made was add 1 inch of the rise in the front and the back all the way around because that's what I needed for these pants. I have the original hem here. I think I do need that extra inch in the end because when I move, this is going to hike up shorter. So I definitely need that extra inch in the length of the legs. This has a finished length of 30 inches and my inseam is 31. So that's something I always knew. Up closer, you can see the fit is pretty good around the waist. Everything is at my waist. You can see that is my natural waist right there. That's why I have a fitted cami underneath. The rise here is comfortable. This reaches the back where it should. I didn't top stitch the elastic, but it's all very comfortable. I am able to pull these up over my hips, just need to shimmy myself in here. There's not a lot of space, but it's still possible. Now on the sides, there is a little extra volume here, and I could see that slight curve on the pattern piece that I was pretty sure wasn't going to match my shape here on the thighs because my thighs are a little straighter. So that's something I can definitely just pin and straighten out right there. Now the knee mark on the pattern, I have drawn it here on my fabric and it's right above my knee. So I definitely need to add length above the knee darts. When I bend, it's sort of right at the start of my knee. So I definitely need to do that, and it was something I was wanting to check with this one. I think adding that inch is going to solve both problems. It's going to bring the knee darts down to where I need them and also add the extra inseam that I need. Very happy. This took no time at all to make. No pockets. You don't need that for the test garment. This is non-wearable.
I'm super happy with the fit. I wouldn't want to change anything. I think the change I made to the rise in the front and the back is right for me. These are hiking pants. They're not supposed to be super fitted and cup your bottom. You need that sort of ease around the front and the back. I can pull them up over my hips, shimmying a little bit. Remember, these are flat front, elasticated back, and there's a fake fly. So at the top of the waist, it should fit over the hips tightly. You can get in. So I'm happy I know that happened. I'm also happy with the length of the elastic at the back. There is a chart in the pattern that tells you what length to use for what size. I'm sewing a size large and that elastic was 16 inches. I wanted to test that out to see if it was going to be comfortable for me. You can always make that a little bigger or a little shorter. It just depends on what you like. And I think 16 inches is spot on for my size. So you don't have to guess here. There is a chart that tells you what to do. I'm super happy to go now. Add that length I need above those knee darts there. So
I've done my test garment. You saw the fit. I confirmed that this was all right, all correct, what I've done here on the top on the rise area. And now I'm happy to add in the inch that I needed. I had a hunch that I needed it, but I didn't want to guess. I wanted to see it on my body. So I drew the line at the same level, both in the back and the front, cutting the pattern piece apart. This is about an inch above the knee notch that you have right there, that little triangle. So I've done the same on both legs so that they make sense. And now I'm going to spread apart and add my inch right there for both legs. Easy peasy, and then I'll be set to sew. I'm doing one leg here. I have already taped the inch that I need, but before attaching the lower part of the leg, I want to continue that grain line arrow through my yellow paper so that I can match it up properly. This is super important, I find, because if you just eyeball this and wing it, your leg can move subtly to one side or to the other, and then it could end up looking twisted. So this is super important. once I have everything aligned there, I can tape it down. And then then over here, we just need to smooth this out and then trim away the excess. I'm going to repeat the same for the front leg. I know not everyone is tall and needs to add length. For some of you might be the opposite, you might be petite. If you did a test garment, you find that these darts are way below your knee. You might find that your knee actually lands above here and has nothing to do with these darts. So instead of spreading apart like I am here, because I just need extra length, you just need to overlap. So determine how much you need to overlap from this line. Let's say you needed to take away 1¼ inches. This is just an example. You would draw that line up here, the amount you need to take away, and then you would overlap, matching up the grain line arrow there, tape it up, smooth out the sides, and then you would be set to go. That would be in the case that you're petite and the pants are going to be too long for you, and they're not going to match the knee reference of these darts right there. But that's not what I need to do. You already saw me lengthen the back. That's what I'm going to do here with the yellow paper. Just do the exact same thing. There is my front leg done. I'm very happy. Remember, I can only show you what my reality is, and my reality is that I'm taller. Hence, extra length on the leg, extra length on the rise. The length on the rise is related to my height because I have a long pelvic frame. If you're petite, you might need to shorten the rise. So it's all got to do with your own unique height and build, and it's not always just about fitting the waist and hips. The circumference is something that can be different for people of various heights, so that's why I think I end up with these adjustments.
After doing these adjustments that in reality take me about 10 minutes to do the whole thing, even the arts and crafts and adding all the things, if I'm not filming, that's how long this fitting process would take. The non-wearable test garment also just takes a few minutes to sew. I use a long stitch length. I don't focus on details. I always want to sew that waistband in because if you don't sew it, you don't have the true reality of how these are going to fit. Please don't try to make a test garment without the waistband. I've seen that so much online. It's super unhelpful. It's just not going to give you the correct fit of the pants. Don't be too precious about how you sew the waistband. Just plop it on there. I hope this was helpful. I am super pumped to sew my pants. You will see my pants. Probably a pair of shorts as well when the pattern is released tomorrow, probably later in the day. Look out for them, they're super fun. I'm very excited to sew mine up, the zipper pockets, all the pockets, so fun. I love sewing pockets and the style deserves them, so I'm not going to skip any of them. Remember, pants fitting can be really fun once you figure out your process, once you learn about your body and what you need. It can become a really quick process and you can have so much satisfaction for yourself sewing your own pants. Having them fit for your body is just the most amazing thing. I'm very, very happy and excited to sew pants every time. And this time's no exception. Medowlark pants for hiking, here we come. And even if you don't like hiking, I think the style is really cool. So keep your eyes open for tomorrow, the Medowlark pants from Love Notions. See you then with my pants made. Bye.